My name is Renette Edgar, and I'm a program facilitator with the Regina District Industry Education Council. I'm very excited to introduce to you Keely Coleman. Keely is originally from Regina and graduated from Balfour Collegiate. Keely will tell us a little bit about her pathways to becoming a theater arts student, presently at Studio 58 in Vancouver, and she'll tell us about the route she's taken to date and what she aspires to do after she gets her degree. Take it away, Keely.
Thank you so much, Renette. As Renette said, my name is Keely Coleman. I'm currently studying theater arts at Studio 58, Langara College in Vancouver. And I'm going to give a little, hopefully, presentation that helps you understand a bit more where you want to go if you're interested in theater. So just starting a little bit about me. As Renette said, I was born and raised in Regina, Saskatchewan, and graduated from Balfour Collegiate. I actually went through the Balfour Arts Collective, and I'm currently at Studio 58. I danced for the first 15 years of my life at a competitive level, and I also taught dance at a competitive and recreational level for the past 8 years. And I taught all across Saskatchewan for different studios, but mainly at the one that I grew up in. I did shows with Regina Summer Stage as well as Sterling Productions, and I choreographed and worked with their program Sterling Studios, which is for the younger generation of Saskatchewan. About, I think, 6 to 16 is the age range that they had when I was there. And I've trained in places and had scholarships to train in places like New York, Las Vegas, Paris, Hawaii, Toronto, Vancouver. So I got a little bit of out there training, which was super lovely. And those are some pictures of different programs and different places I've competed and performed. As far as theater schools, I remember being in high school and wondering, where do I start? There's so many websites that say the top 10 schools in Canada, the top 10 schools in the world, the this, that, and it's so overwhelming. The number one piece of advice that I got was know what you are looking for. There's over 100 theater programs in Canada, and it's important to know what kind of program you want to participate in. You might be a stage actor who wants to focus on plays. You might be someone who loves musical theater. You might be someone who wants to work in film and TV. And there's schools that specialize in that, and there's also schools that specialize in the whole package. So it's really important to know what you want to do. There are major university programs, so I have some listed on the side, like UBC, U of R, U of A. There's plenty others that have amazing theater programs. And they're going to be closer to a classic type of program. You know, you're going to take your theater classes, but you're also going to take a lot of other classes, getting the credits that you need to graduate. So it's not just focused on the theater. It mainly is, but it can scope outside of that. There's also conservatory programs, which is closer to working a real schedule in a theater job. And their classes will mirror more of professional workshop types. So I'm in a conservatory type program, which is actually the only one on the west side of Canada. So I'm in Studio 58. Some other ones that are similar to that are VFS would be somewhat similar. Second City would be somewhat similar. It's a bit more focused on comedy and like theatrical comedy. You're gonna have places like Sheridan too, being quite similar. And what these programs look like is, for example, I'm going to talk a little bit later about this, but most theater companies give you Monday off. And so you're going to be working a 6-day schedule because that's the reality of what it's like to be in theater. And yeah, there are performing arts schools, which have different styles of teaching, but they focus more on performance preparation than maybe per se classic university classes. So a really great example of that is the CCPA out in Victoria, Canadian College of Performing Arts. They focus a lot on working you to performance. You're constantly performing around the community, which is so lovely. But it's a different focus than taking, per se, a course at UBC. So it's really important to know what kind of style of program you're looking for and what you want to specialize in. I'm a musical theater person at heart. So, you know, places like Sheridan, like Studio 58, they have musicals. They focus a lot on training the actor as a whole. And I think for me, that was one of the biggest sells on coming to Studio 58. The other piece of advice that I'll give that I got gifted to me by the amazing Amy Wright, she talked a lot about how finding schools in Canada is so important. Everyone wants to go to the big fancy schools that are out there in different countries. I think that that advice was wonderful because it builds connections within the country you're from, which makes it easier to branch out. If you have maybe a dream of working in LA, or a dream of, like me, I would love to be on Broadway, working in New York. But going out there, knowing nobody, and trying to build those connections in time before my visa runs out is harder than coming here, building connections to people who have connections out there. And then I can get out there without having to put a time limit on getting myself there. Alrighty, next slide. As far as living in Saskatchewan, we have so many wonderful programs at U of R, U of S. But if you're looking to branch out, it's sometimes hard when we constantly have to do video auditions, or we want to look at what the theater program is like, and we have to watch YouTube videos or other little, for example, as well as many other schools, do information session type hosting where you can join and they'll have someone directly from the program give you a rundown of what it's like to be here, what we focus on, much like what I'm doing now, but obviously on a level of they've been here, they're usually faculty or their staff here. Actually, we're running auditions next weekend for people in the Lower Mainland, and I'm getting to help. So it will be one of my first times also getting to experience what it's like to be in an audition room, not auditioning myself, but getting to be around that, because I think that's so important when a lot of the time we're auditioning on videos. It's really cool to have that connection to the actual people in the school. So that's something to look for. Our website is langara.ca/studio58, but there's tons of others, like Sheridan has them, I know. I think Toronto Metropolitan has some as well. So it's really important that if you want to get a better look at the school firsthand, you can do that on these information sessions. So applying, what it looks like applying. I took a gap year to make sure that I was ready to get into school. I knew I was going to move, so I wanted to make sure I had everything in line, all my ducks in a row to go. It was also important to me to get experience and get feedback. I danced, like I said, for a long time. I had done theater, but I wanted to make sure that I really had all of the feedback I could possibly get and all the experience I could get at the time. There's obviously experience and feedback you can always get. So when considering any schooling, but essentially, especially with theater programs, you need to have a plan. They are often jam-packed and don't leave a lot of room for a job or too much outside activity, which sounds like it might be scary, like you might not be able to do everything you want, but there's still tons of time to do that. And planning ahead is very important. When in these intense programs, and especially when you're moving away, it becomes dire to make sure you have some type of plan. Like I said, I took a gap year, and it was wonderful to really make sure that I had everything ready for when I moved out here so that I could really focus on the program. Because part of theater is that you have to be here mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of that. You have to be in the space and ready to go. And there are things that when you're doing the actual audition part that you have to be ready for. A lot of the times they'll ask, almost every time, they'll ask for monologues. And they want you to do modern monologues, not classic. Sorry, I have some friends out there getting excited. So those are going to be post-2000. So anything post-2000, you're going to be able to find lots and lots and lots online. And you're going to make sure that it's something that reflects your range. So, for example, I am 20 years old, for example, when I auditioned, I was 18. You're not going to pick something that's maybe a 40-year-old woman talking about her divorce, right? That's not quite your range, not quite your style that you're going to want to be giving. You want to find something closer to your range that you feel comfortable with. Usually they will provide you Shakespeare classical monologues if they want them, which a lot of places don't. But have an idea of like a show that's a classic or a Shakespeare that you would like. I was in, like I said, musical theater, so I wasn't as big into the Shakespeare and classical side. So I've learned a lot of that here, but I still did have to find pieces. And again, you have to make sure that it really connects to who you are as an artist and a person. Having a song or an idea of your range is always helpful. You do not have to be a singer at all, but a lot of the times they'll ask you to sing a little tune. And it's important to know something. Even at one of my auditions, they said, they were like, you can sing ABCs if you really need to. So if you don't have a song, they'll help you. But if you have one in mind that you just like singing, even if it's in the shower or in the car, that's awesome. Have some movement experience. Go take a little movement class or a dance class. But a lot of these things too, you can find online. There's a lot of helpful resources to find your range, to learn a dance or some movement through YouTube, or a lot of like community centers will bring in places, or schools will bring in places bring in people to teach and work with that. A lot of schools I know have choir programs still. If you can get in that, that's awesome. And the last thing I would say is know a little bit about the school and the faculty, as well as any questions you may have. Getting to Studio 58, it's actually a requirement in the audition that you bring a question. They want to know that you actually care. What is a week like in theater school? For me, I go to classes 5 days of the week, from anywhere between 8:30 to 5. Sometimes it'll be later, sometimes it'll be earlier. And the classes that I take include acting, voice, movement. We have jazz, yoga, Pilates, tap, physical contact work, playwriting, theater fundamentals, physical theater, which involves mime, pantomime, mask work, puppets. There's so many opportunities there, as well as film and TV acting. And there's a lot more classes that I could get into, but those kind of embody all of it. And then we also do crew work. So crew work can be called any day for any time that you are not in class. I've had crew on weekends, after class, before class, and you can be on crews for shows like lighting, set, costumes, props, marketing, many more. Studio 58 does a wonderful job, and I think there's a few programs that do, but as far as I know, this is one of the most intense versions of it, where they give you the full experience of being a theater artist. You're never going to put on a show right out of school, like personally by yourself, where you're not going to have to do other things. So in your first 3 terms, you're on crews for shows. In your last term, you actually create your own solo show with your term that you're graduating with, and you have to put it together. So one of my lovely friends and colleagues she loves lighting. She was just the lighting crew head for our last show, Heather's the Musical, and she loves it. She wants to do it for our final term, putting our solo shows together. It's so amazing to me. I just got to be an assistant stage manager for that show, and it was the most fun ever. I love doing it. And our next show that's coming up, we are a boy band. I get to be on the marketing crew, and it's so fun to get that opportunity to be in the shows, but also get to be on the other side of the shows. It's truly amazing, and I think it teaches you a lot of important lessons in the crew work, but also in acting and also in life. I never knew that I'd be able to use like an air staple gun safely, and I can do it now. And, I know how to stain a deck. I know how to paint like there's wood, like paint wood to look like wood. There's all these different techniques it's insane. I know a bunch about lights now. I have some photos of like the first photo with the ladder. That was while I was on lighting crew for one of the shows we did. The bottom is one of my friends taking a photo of one of my other friends who was painting for the set. That's one of the sets that was built by students. And the last photo that's up in the top right is actually something that I stained and helped build. It's amazing to get to see that work put out, and I think that's so important to learn as a theater artist. So that's all for my presentation. Any questions?
The fact that what took you out to Studio 58 was the program itself. Um, does the location make a difference for you? I mean, you're out in Vancouver. Did that play because you had that gap year, did you travel to Vancouver? Did you travel to Toronto? Like, how did you plan and prepare yourself for that location?
I actually didn't come out here. We wanted to, but the timing of the shows I was in, it never just quite worked out timing wise. But I think in Canada, right now we're going through a weird time with our theater and our film and TV. It's coming back, but it's coming in and out, especially in those prairie provinces. So a lot of the time you'll see they have amazing programs. They're wonderful, and a lot of them I think can get you very far, and they have gotten people very, very far. But for me personally, I know that the industry in Canada is really booming out in BC, Toronto, and a little bit in Quebec. So for me, I think I got accepted into some schools that were in Toronto and some that were in Vancouver, Victoria area. And it came down to in my interview I asked them all kind of a similar question, and I think the answer that I got from Studio 58 for me personally was what led me here. But location definitely to me mattered, but I think there's opportunity everywhere. It's just a bit more what you want to do, because there's also the importance of knowing, like, Vancouver very much is a film and TV hub of Canada, and Toronto is very much the stage theater hub. So you have to know a bit where you're going, and again, that's knowing what you want out of your experience at a theater school.
No, that's awesome, Keely. Keely, that's a good answer. And I think students often they have to really kind of look within too and decide, what's going to meet their needs. And, the adventurous kind might want to move away from the province, right? And try that. And that's a great opportunity. Um, you had talked about aspiring to maybe end up on Broadway. Is that where you see yourself going, from, and maybe before you answer that question, we talked about, I think you alluded a little bit to certificate, diploma, degree.
Yeah.
And I think you had mentioned to me one time that, this is a degree program, or they're moving to a degree program. Is that the case? Just to maybe let students know the length that they might be at Studio 58.
Yeah. So with our program, it used to be that there was an option. It's 3 years, whether you're in the production route, which is if you would like to go into the production side. It's essentially like the crew work, but on a larger scale. So working to be maybe a lighting designer or a costume designer or something like that. It's 3 years, and the acting stream is also 3 years. But we were a degree program, and then it moved away from that because it was partnered with another school, and I think they're moving back to it. I'm not 100% sure as they haven't announced anything, but I believe that they are going back to it. But as of right now, it's I want to say a diploma a diploma and not a degree as of right now. But I
Okay,
believe there is an option coming.
perfect. So to move to say, for you to make that move to New York or, maybe even Toronto, there's maybe some off-Broadway type thing.
Yeah.
Do you have connections made at Studio 58 that would help you route into some of these bigger centers and possibly a career, on the stage?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. I get the absolute honor of every day being taught by some of the most amazing artists in Canada. And one of the really cool things about Studio 58 is that because you're working on the cruise for the first three terms that you're here, you get to really meet the industry professionals they bring in. We just had Julie Tomeno come and direct Heather's the musical, and she's a former Rockette. She is actually going out to Stratford right now to direct a show, and getting to learn from her and work alongside her, you get to build those connections of people, where down the line it might be like, hey, I need someone to be my assistant choreographer. Can you come in? Or hey, I need someone to even just be on this crew work that I'm doing as a lighting designer. I got to work with the amazing Jonathan Kim, who is like a legend in Canada in lighting. And, getting to work with those people is so important. I get to, every day for the past three terms, I get to come into acting and work with Andrew McNee. He was in Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and he does a lot of work for My Little Pony for voice acting. I get to work with Wendy Gorling, who is an absolute Canadian legend in physical theater and acting. She was in The Last of Us recently. So I like it's so amazing to get to work with these people, and it helps you build those connections to be able to one day say, hey, I want to be able to do this. Who can I fall back on? And you have these amazing legendary Canadian artists being there to support you.
That is so nice to know that there, like I said, you've got that support system and I think for students to hear that too, because I think that's always the biggest the question, what school is one thing, but then life is another, right? And how do you move from school to life and what supports are there for you? You've done such an awesome presentation. I think the questions that you've answered were done very well. And I know students that check out this Zoom they're going to be very happy to hear what your message was. So on behalf of our Industry Education Council, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of a very busy schedule to do this presentation and to talk to aspiring, students from our province, which is your province. So thank you so much, Keely.
Thank you so, so much. And I hope this is so helpful. And anytime that students have questions, you can find me on social media under it's Keely Coleman on Instagram, Keely Coleman on Facebook. Send me messages. I can give you a shout or I can direct you to other places that might be able to give you a better shout.
Thanks again, Keely.
Thank you.